Hello, it's time to talk movies on Encore. Top of the bill today. A colourful character in a black and white film. We hear from actor Bruce Dern about playing the role of Woody in Alexandre Payne's movie Nebraska. Plus, what do you get when you cross one of France's biggest rock god and one of the country's most famous film directors? A funny and touching movie about prioritising your career over your family that both Johnny Hallyday and Claude Lelouch can relate to. And from music to movies, French DJ turned writer-director Quentin Dupieux brings his techno beats to the big screen again in his quirky tale of police gone bad in rom-coms. Joining me in the studio to dissect all that is our cinema critic Lisa Nesselson. So let's get started. Hi Lisa, great to have you with us as always. So we're going to start with a film that's just hitting cinema screens here in France, but it actually debuted here at the Cannes Film Festival last year. I'm talking about Alexandre Payne's Nebraska, which stars Bruce Dern.
Speaking of the festival, amazingly, this movie was only completed 3 or 4 days before it was shown in Cannes, and Bruce Dern went on to win the Best Actor award from Steven Spielberg's jury. It's a deadpan, bittersweet comedy about Woody, a taciturn curmudgeon, a man of very, very few words, who gets it in his head that a piece of junk mail he's received saying he's a millionaire, he's received $1 million, is actually authentic, genuine, means what it says, is telling the truth. So he sets out to collect his winnings, which happened to be in an entirely different state. And he's pretty much going to have to walk there because he doesn't have a driver's license because he drinks. Let's take a look.
So you told the sheriff that you were walking to Nebraska?
That's right. To get my $1 million.
This is Woody Grant.
We are now authorized to pay $1 million to Woodrow T. Grant of Billings, Montana.
This is his son.
You didn't win anything. It's a complete scam. So you gotta stop this, okay?
I'm running out of time.
This is his wife.
I never knew the son of a bitch even wanted to be a millionaire. You should have thought about that years ago and worked for it.
How much longer is he gonna be around?
Right, Lisa, I can't help noticing that the film's in black and white, which is pretty unusual these days, isn't it?
You're right, it is pretty unusual, but it is absolutely the right way to render the horizons of the Great Plains and the craggy, interesting faces of the people who live there. Dern brought the film to the Chicago International Film Festival back in October. He actually grew up in a Chicago suburb in a rather affluent family, which frowned and looked down their noses on actors. And while I was there, I got to ask him about our fellow citizens there in the flat expanses of the great Midwestern Plains and beyond. And Woody may be a man of few words, but Dern actually loves to talk, and he stood up for the idea that that's the part of the country where you'll find a special brand of American. Here's Dern.
They're the stoics that are left in America because there is a lot of it that's gone and not the same. The farmers are tenants on their own farms working for big corporations. But despite the bleakness and everything else, they don't leave. And Woody's one of those people. His whole family is one of those people.
Lisa, I'm getting the distinct feeling you like this film.
Actually, I've seen it twice. I flat out adore it. See it, and you'll be able to observe, I think, your quota of quirks and foibles for months to come. That's what the characters are like, and the acting is superb. The movie is about the contours of business partnerships, romantic partnerships, what it means to be a son or a father, what happens to otherwise normal people when they smell money, what it means to try and make up for squandered opportunities and lost time, and it's funny. June Squibb, who we saw there as Woody's wife, is so outspoken. She makes you wish you could just say whatever's on your mind in all circumstances. The loose ends are tied up exquisitely, and director Alexandre Payne, you may remember, made About Schmidt with Jack Nicholson and also The Descendants with George Clooney. Many striking parts have come Bruce Dern's way, but this really is the role of a lifetime for his particular gifts.
All right, well, Nebraska couldn't be more American, but also out here this week is a film that perhaps couldn't be more French. I'm talking about Salut en Thème, which is called Love You Bastard in English by director Claude Lelouch.
You know, I believe this is one-man band Claude Lelouch's 44th feature film. He remains best known for A Man and a Woman, which won the top prize at Cannes and 2 Oscars, and gave the world a theme song I'm pretty sure just about everybody's heard. Inside this vintage record album, you will find many variations on da 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 da
Very good rendition there.
Not bad for a guy whose first film actually elicited this truly damning review. Remember the name Claude Lelouch because you're never going to hear it again. Boy, was that guy mistaken. Lelouch's sheer joy in filmmaking positively drips off the screen. He writes, directs, produces, and operates the camera. And famous actors love to work with him because, you know why? He's a nice, enthusiastic guy. And so he has no trouble assembling terrific casts. His movies, I have to say, don't always work. Sometimes they're downright embarrassing. But this is a pretty good one.
Why do you say that?
Well, it features Johnny Hallyday and Eddie Mitchell. These are two iconic singers with careers dating back to the end of the 1950s, beginning of the 1960s. Halliday plays Jacques Kaminsky, a famous war photographer who's hanging up his telephoto lenses to enjoy a 10-bedroom chalet and an extensive estate in the Alps. He has 4 daughters by 4 very different women. They keep pointing out how different they all were. And since he's always paid more attention to his work than his family, his relationships with them are, shall we say, cordially strained. Jacques' best friend, Frederic, tells a little fib. Actually, it's a pretty big fib, thinking it'll bring about roller coaster results, and we get to be in on the ride. We get everything from a bank robbery to half a dozen romances, all of them stuffed into one film. And if Lelouch throws in a little bit of everything, including the kitchen sink, well, I'd say it's a nice kitchen in which to spend 2 hours.
All right, well, Lisa, I also heard that both Lelouch and his longtime pal, Johnny Hallyday, can actually rather identify with the notion of putting work before family.
I think that's true. The role fits Hallyday like the proverbial glove, but apparently Lelouch first offered it to several other actors who turned it down for one reason or another. That's their loss, absolutely our gain. Lelouch says Johnny has the face of a guy who has played Russian roulette all his life, and I'd go along with that. In real life, to answer your question, Hallyday is the father of 4 children. 2 are now adults, 2 are still kids, and he admits that because he was pursuing his performing career, he was constantly on the road or in the studio, he really wasn't there for them, and those 2 older children were pretty much raised by their respective mothers. And as he told France 24's French culture program, Lelouch admits there's a lot of himself in the role. Let's listen.
I had the good fortune to have 7 children with 5 different mothers, so life wasn't exactly easy. And it's true that I spent more time behind my camera and on my films than with those who were close to me. Eventually, you start to feel guilty about that. I was very unhappy that I couldn't take my kids to school. I didn't read them bedtime stories, never made them do their homework. So I felt I hadn't been the best father, and that's what this film's about a man who wants to make up for lost time.
All right, well, Claude Lelouch likes to film actors playing characters who undergo life-changing experiences. So does French writer-director Quentin Dupieux, whose latest film, Wrong Cops, is in French theatres. But they go about it rather differently, don't they, Lisa?
Well, you could say that. They're both French, they're both men. They both write and direct movies full of ideas that give you the impression that they don't care what anybody else thinks. They're really their own men. You might actually run into real people who look and behave and sound like a lot of the characters in Lelouch's film, but that's not really going to happen with Dupieux because up until now he's made 5 utterly surreal features since 2001, all of them comedies. The last 3 are in English and all set in the California sunshine, and they're all the work of a real auteur. I think we can say that because a dozen monkeys typing for millennia would never come up with the situations Dupieux happens to orchestrate.
Can you give us some other examples?
Sure. His film Rubber stars a tire, you know, a rubber tire from a car, which rolls around killing people. It's a serial killer tire. Then his next film, there we see him. He's a charming guy.
Genius.
His next film is called Wrong, and it's about a guy who doesn't enjoy his job. We can understand why. And his doggy is dog-napped, and he meets a lot of weird characters on the way to being reunited with his pooch. And in this new film, Wrong Cops, the pitch is that there is so little crime in their jurisdiction that the policemen actually have to tip over and commit crimes to justify having a police department. One cop is a drug dealer who delivers weed in the bodies of rats. I think that he thinks that that's more inconspicuous than, say, a plastic bag or a piece of tinfoil. So obviously what I learned from this movie is I will never be a successful drug dealer because I never, ever would have thought of that.
Well, I'm not sure. Don't. You might have a career there, yeah. I'm not sure that's that inconspicuous, really.
his background is in electronic music, and that's something that comes through in the movie. If you like jerking your head back and forth to kind of pointless beats, you can get everything that's on the soundtrack of this film on a record album. And also in the film is Marilyn Manson, without makeup, playing a rather sensitive, pleasant character. He's not what you would expect. And there's also, in some of his films, Sébastien Tellier, a French crooner who you'll find on the album. There's a running gag in the film about a one-eyed cop who is trying to compose a hit song. And I love the scene in a record impresario's office where he thinks that the cop's uniform and the crime victim bleeding to death on his sofa are actually some sort of stage gimmick. Let's take a look at an excerpt from the film.
I don't know how to explain this. Your words go in my ear, but then they don't make it to the processor.
Do you want me to repeat it again?
No. Hey, wow, hang on. Who smells like bad fish? Is that you?
Oh, no, it's not. I think it's you.
Well, speaking of music, we're going to leave you now with another one of Quentin Dupieux's quirky productions. This is Flat Beat, a music video starring the yellow puppet Flat Eric, who you might recognise from a series of Levi Jean commercials. Lisa, thanks as always for your cinematic insights. Don't forget, you can get more movie and culture news on our social networks. Enjoy and see you at the same time, same place tomorrow.
Wow.